It is just a huge honor today to be sitting in my home with an idol and mentor of mine for probably 25, 30 years, Larry Mathis. How are you doing,
I'm
Larry?
doing great. Thank you, Howard.
And
Great to be here.
I'm going to read his bio. Larry Mathis is the founder of Mathis Wealth Management, a private financial planning firm based right here in Phoenix, Arizona. He is a certified financial planner, professional, and accredited investment fiduciary with clients throughout the country. Larry is a public speaker and the author of Bridging the Financial Gap for Dentists and Mom Was Right. An active member of his local community, Larry has been married to his wife, Rhonda, for 32 years and have 3 sons, ages 25, 22, and 18. Securities offered through United Planners Financial Services, member FINRA, SIPC. Thanks so much for coming over today.
Oh, it was a great drive over, Howard.
And, the dentists, they all want to just do root canals, fillings, and crowns. You know, you don't go to school 8 years to be a financial planner. We just had 6,000 kids walk out of dental school a couple weeks ago. 2 schools here, which you teach at.
Yes.
You teach at Midwestern.
At AT Still.
Oh, is it AT Still?
AT Still.
Oh, I thought you were at Midwestern.
No, I live by Midwestern,
Oh,
but I
okay, you
teach
live
at
by-
AT Still.
So right now you're talking to thousands of young dentists, people old and decrepit and senile like us. We read books, but they listen to podcasts while they commute to work off their smartphone. So you're talking to a bunch of kids commuting to work. What do you think they didn't learn in dental school that they need to learn about financial planning?
Well, there's a lot, Howard. Unfortunately, you know, when you're in dental school, it's all about learning techniques and procedures and all of the stuff associated with being a dentist that I know absolutely nothing about. But the reality is the vast majority of schools teach maybe, you know, a day or a half a day or something like that on finance, what you need to know about disability insurance and you know, retirement planning and such. The challenge that a lot of these young dentists have is they're coming out of school with tons of debt, and their big question is, do I pay off my debt? Or do I, you know, save money? Should I have some money in an emergency reserve? When should I start investing? And they really, for not lack of not being smart, but being not being educated on what needs to be done. So,
How long have you been in the dental space?
Almost 30 years.
30 years.
Long time.
That's right. What do you think is different about the millennials graduating today, as opposed to, I just celebrated my 30th anniversary right here in Ahwatukee. I was from 87 to 2017. What do you think is different about their financial situation than 30 years ago when you got in this space?
Well, first and foremost is the school that they have. Even the loan programs that were, you know, the dentist had back in, you know, 30 years ago or even 20 years ago, the interest rates were significantly lower. But you have these young dentists coming out of school with anywhere, I've seen as much as $400,000 to $500,000 of loans. That's like having a mortgage without a house with a really high interest rate. And they're faced with significant amount of you know, pressures on how am I even going to get this paid off. And in addition to that, there's so much information out there. Sometimes a little bit of information overload that it becomes difficult for them to make financial decisions.
And how much debt do you advise your clients graduating dental school just to move to Brazil and change your name?
I have not made that.
What is the
not.
threshold before you say?
I'll tell you, Howard. It's pretty scary to see these students coming out.
Well,
with
tell me.
250
Let's start talking about that
500,000.
first, because tell me if I'm right or wrong. It seems to me, you know, financial leverage. All these kids could have worked at McDonald's for 15, 20 years and saved up enough money to go to AT Still in cash, but they used other people's money to go to dental school now, so they can become a doctor. So instead of making minimum wage, now they can make $50 to $100 an hour. But it seems like a lot of them come out and they've used other people's money to $350,000 in debt, and now they want to go get a job at corporate for like $150, pay taxes, and of course the millennials love to spend money. They've never seen a dollar they don't want to part with at $5 Starbucks and eating out, you know, 5 times a week and all that stuff. And so the math says, well, if you're going to make $150,000 a year and pay taxes, it's going to take you 20 years to pay all those student loans. Is this true or false? If you borrow $1/3 to $500,000 to become a doctor, you got to go all the way with other people's money and buy a practice for $750 or $800, because you're not going to pay off those student loans in 5 to 10 years being an employee. Is that right or wrong?
I would say that's right, Howard, and you can pay it off in 5 or 10 years in corporate dentistry, but you're not going to have anything else other than an apartment and your
But
student loans to
they
pay.
don't do that. They come out of school and their starter home is bigger than their mom and dad's home.
Yeah.
And he's had a job for 40 years. You go to AT Still and Midwestern, it looks like a Honda dealership. and then they post on Facebook, they do their spring breaks on cruises, and they fly places, and they eat out every night. And I mean, they just, I mean, a fool in their money will soon be parted. And these millennials are spenders. Do you see that, or am I reading that wrong?
I would say a high percent. And it's not just millennials; it's people in general. But yeah, they want to spend money. They want to have today what it took a lot of their parents to accumulate over a 30-year period of time. Yeah, absolutely.
But so you're saying they could get a job at corporate if it's not what you earn, it's what you spend, and they live humble. I mean, I tell them, go move back with mom and dad. And I mean, I didn't have a car till senior year of dental school. I walked all in undergrad, first 3 years of dental school, and that was the norm.
You know, it's not rocket science, Howard. If you have a limited amount of resources, the only way to expand and being able to pay down that debt is to increase the income. If you want to have a lifestyle that you want to enjoy, and the reality is, the vast majority of people don't want to live below their means and live below what their peers are living. You know, there's an old saying: you have to be willing to do what nobody else is willing to do, so you can have what nobody else will have later in life. Putting off today for what you want tomorrow. You know, my poor kids growing up with a financial planner. My oldest son's first vehicle was $3,000, and my second son's first vehicle, I think, was $4,000, and I guess my youngest was lucky because we spent as much as $5,000 on a vehicle for them. But once they wanted another vehicle, it was all up to them. And so you got to be willing to live below your means.
They do it in their dental profession. Like 3M will sell an Impergum impression that I've used for 30 years, $17. And they'll say, you don't want a $17 impression. We got a $17,000 scanner. It's all digital. It'll hook up to your iPhone. And it'll be a $200, $300 a month maintenance contract in perpetuity. And the first thing they'll think is, oh my God, a shiny object. I'll buy it now. You say, well, you could send that $17 impression to a lab man right around the corner, and he'll make you a crown for $99. No, I want to mill it out myself. I want to buy 150,000. I mean, it's like every idea they have, they're going to blow 10, 100, 150,000. It's like dentistry is one of those deals where every time they have a thought, their overhead goes up and their debt goes up. Mm-hmm. It's almost like maybe they should just start like smoking pot every morning on the way to work, so they get to work and they don't have any new thoughts. I mean, I always say the dentist should have a new thought board that every morning in the morning huddle, the dentist should walk all their staff and say, help me from myself. Here's my best idea that I had today. Please stop me from doing it. You know, and then the staff could, but they know they have to have disability insurance, but can you really sell life insurance to a 25-year-old? I mean, aren't 25-year-olds going to live forever?
They're not going to live forever. I've come to realize that the older I get, the more I realize I'm not going to live forever. You know, disability insurance is key in my opinion for any dentist coming out of school, and the time to get it is right when they're getting ready to graduate, because insurance companies will actually allow them to buy disability insurance to protect income that they don't even have yet. When it comes to life insurance, my philosophy is pretty simple. If you don't have somebody who's dependent upon you personally, financially, you don't need life insurance. Once you have children or a spouse or somebody like that who's dependent upon you, then it makes sense to get some life insurance, some cheap, inexpensive term life insurance that you can have for 20 or 30 years.
But for like a single guy like me, since my kids are 27, 26, 24, 22, and they're all, you know, on their own, do you think I should have life insurance for 4 kids if the baby's 22? Your baby's what? Your baby's 18, mine's 22.
Yeah. I still carry life insurance.
Yeah, but you're married.
Yeah, I am married. 32 years, blissfully to the same gal that I met when I was 17 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody's situation is different. It really comes down to.
But what would you advise a single dentist whose baby is 22? Do you think they still need life insurance?
They may or may not. It depends upon whether or not if they have debt, that kind of stuff, it's going to be passed on to somebody else.
I
If they have
put
a
all
partner,
my
so
debt in my children's name.
That's perfect.
They don't even know
No,
it.
that's
forged
not.
their signatures.
That's not perfect.
They don't even know it.
Again, it comes down to whether or not you have somebody who's dependent upon you and what you want to leave someone. Let me address that real quickly, Howard. I wrote the book "Mom Was Right." So
Shout out to Mom.
Shout
Love
out to
my
Mom. Well, my father died when I was 3 years old. Mom was 35 years old, had 7 kids. She had no job. She had no house. She had no college education. My dad,
7 kids?
7 children.
She had to be Catholic or Mormon?
Lutheran. So,
Really?
Yeah,
Lutherans
close.
had 7 kids?
Yeah. Well, it was the
first-
60s. There
you
was
might
no
be the
birth
first
control.
Lutheran I've ever met that had 7 kids.
Well, I'm not a Lutheran
I thought
anymore.
only Catholics and Mormons could pull that off. But Lutheran
It was the
7
60s.
kids.
It was
Okay.
the 60s, Howard.
All
They
right.
had no birth control. So, anyhow, but here's the thing: 7 children, no home, no job, no income. But my dad did purchase a life insurance policy in 1963. And when my father passed away, my mom got that life insurance. And really, the book "Mom Was Right" kind of talks about what my mom did with that money. And it's kind of interesting talking about millennials and money, and not just millennials, but really when someone has cash that all of a sudden they got income all of a sudden that they've never had before, and they have a pool of money that comes to them, whether it's an inheritance or whatever. In my mom's case, it was life insurance. It's not so much about what they do with the money; it's what you should not do with the money. And the vast majority of people want to make quick decisions on, hey, now I'm making 10 grand a month. I think I'll go buy this. I'll spend this, rather than taking the time. And in my opinion, the best thing you can do in a situation like that is nothing. Kind of see how things are going to work out a little bit before you make any major decisions.
So I just retweeted. I went to your website, momwasrightbook.com. I just retweeted that on my Twitter. They're all driving, so they know my guests. They just go to my Twitter at Howard Farran.
Yep.
So I retweeted your momwasrightbook.com at Howard Farran. And then I also retweeted your website at your Twitter at LarryMathis.com. I think that is my boy's grandpa. He had the exact same situation. Yeah, they had how many was in Grandpa's family? How many kids they had? Was it 9?
Yeah.
And they were dairy.
Were they Catholic or more?
They were Catholic.
Okay.
And they were dairy farm. This is kind of too much information, but if you go to Africa, Asia, and Latin America, the cows look like they're starving to death. The American was a very successful farmer, and they bred obesity. A normal cow might make like a gallon of milk a day. Those big obese American dairy cows do 4, 6, 8 gallons a day, but they're so obese they can't mate. So when they're sniffing around, they put them in a chute. So when the bull comes in or mounts them, someone's got to crawl underneath and help them find where to go and insert it. And the bull slept off and smashed him to death. And
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, big old. What are those bulls? 2,000 pounds. And so anyway, so they lived in the same deal, and all their children, very successful, but won't part with their cash, because they were fatherless through the Depression, and they used to have to sleep on the corners of their farm to keep hungry hobos from coming in and stealing their chickens and stuff like that. It was very rough times. It was amazing to when he ended up having millions of dollars. He still wouldn't spend it because they knew.
They knew what it was like to have nothing.
They knew what it was like to have nothing. Yeah. So
I definitely experienced that.
So
growing up with
speaking
Mom.
of that, so adversity really builds character. What people
Absolutely
say,
it
what
does.
doesn't kill you
will help you.
makes you stronger,
Make you better or stronger.
So then
Yeah.
how do you advise the older dentist listeners, and older 55 and older, not
My age.
not 54 like me and younger.
Okay.
That's a dividing.
I'm 55. 55 is the dividing
and I'm 54.
line.
That's the dividing
Okay.
line between old and senile
Okay.
and still rocking it.
That's fair.
So what would you advise then on the college funding? Because I see so many dentists putting away so much money for college funding, and I went to school with these guys, and they were on student loans and had 3 jobs and were eating ramen noodles, and then you sit there and think, well, don't you think my kid would be better if he was living on the street eating ramen noodles? Or how do you justify helping a kid, making him too fat and lazy versus too hungry?
Well, I think helping your kids with college is a great idea, but it should not come at the expense of your own retirement. Because the reality is that there's a lot of people out there wanting to let their kids have a better, easier life than what they've had, and sometimes it's going to be at the cost of their own retirement someday. And then you're 70 years old, 80 years old, still practicing dentistry, not because you want to, but because you have to. I have no issue with allowing people to have a little bit of adversity. I think it's great when you can help your kids not end up with $300,000 or $400,000 worth of school loans, but there is nothing wrong with letting kids struggle. And you can ask any of my boys if we've allowed them to struggle, because the reality is, I think allowing someone to struggle and really learn from, sometimes even learn from poor financial decisions.
Oh yeah, it's amazing because so many people whine about their parents, especially my four boys. It's just nonstop. And I always say that my dad, he had 9 Sonic drive-ins and taught me everything I know about business. But the biggest takeaway lessons I learned from my dad are his biggest mistakes he made. And you always knew what mistakes he made because he was married to my mom, so she had to keep reminding him, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because she fought with him tooth and nail, like, don't do these 3 things. And Dad, I don't know if he listened to his mom, but he didn't listen to his wife. But anyway, so it's like my takeaway is I actually learned more business from my mom, who's a stay-at-home mom, whining to Dad about these 3 issues that became his biggest problems. One was partners. It was always chaos fighting with the partners. Number 2, he was outsourcing his accounting. So he didn't know his numbers. He had a CPA. And then the other guy at the same church was Dan and Beverly Carney, who founded Pizza Hut, and they had 2,800 Pizza Huts. And when he had 5 employees, 2 of them were bookkeepers. And every millionaire that we knew, by the time they got to 5 employees, they already had 2 bookkeepers. They always knew their cost. And so now, I've had Stacy and Lori were bookkeepers, going back into the 90s. And I just know my numbers. And Dad never knew his numbers. He was always winging it. You know what I mean?
Well, you bring up another really good point, Howard. And both Mom was right and Bridging the Financial Gap. I talk about knowing what your numbers are, and not just your numbers as far as what you're making from your practice, but knowing what you're spending. Where's the money going? And this is a big issue with millennials. And I'll even say my own sons, they don't keep a checkbook. They have no idea what kind of money they have. They take their phone and they say, I've got X amount of dollars in there in my account, and that's how they do their accounting. They don't know what their expenses are. You've got to know what your expenses are. You have to know what your fixed expenses are, your needs versus wants, and you need to know what your income is. I am amazed, Howard, that I can sit down and visit with a dentist who's been practicing for 25 years and does not have a clue of what his real or her real income is. They don't even know what they're making or what they're paying in taxes.
Larry, it's all of them. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never met one. And I'll tell you this number. You go to their office and they say to you, well, my hygienist booked up 2 weeks in advance. You think I should hire another hygienist? I said, well, how long has that hygienist, Bessie Lou, been working for you? 10 years? Okay, well, she just did a cleaning, exam, and bite wings. What did that cost you? Did you make $9 profit? Did you lose $9? No one has ever been able to answer that. And then they sign up for every PPO that comes across their desk. So I'll say, well, how much you're doing a filling in there, and you blocked off an hour for 2 fillings. How much you get those fillings? And he goes, I think I get about $250 a piece. Dude, you've signed up for 12 PPO prices. The highest one is $150, and it goes all the way down to $105. So this is the 105 one. So you got 2 fillings. So you're going to get $210. You're in there for an hour. Did you make $1 or lose $1? I have no idea. And that's the state of our industry.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you're right. It doesn't make any difference in many cases. And again, this isn't across the board for quote unquote everyone. There are exceptions of people who are, keeping track of their numbers. But the vast majority of them,
the only one
the vast majority of them are not.
No, I've never met one. and I've lectured 1,000 times. I've never met one. The only ones that know it are the DSOs. And the DSOs, like when you talk to Steve Thorne, you said, are you doing all this on like Dentrix or Eagles? They go, no. We bought a system, and then we hired a bunch of programmers, and we've been adding layers and layers of financial management. Only the DSOs, and it's a huge competitive advantage for these guys. I mean, imagine you do not know your cost, and there's a corporate dental office across the street that knows their cost. Then the dentist, you say, well, you just mailed a flyer to everybody in town. How many new calls that generate? They have no idea.
No idea.
How many calls, let's say it generated 100 calls, how many did your receptionist convert to an appointment? No idea. For all the people that came in and you laid out a treatment plan, we're not talking about fancy veneers and implants and bleaching and bonding. We're talking about just decay. How many cavities did you diagnose, did you convert to getting drilled, filled, and built? No idea. They have no idea. And I'll say, well, what is your best idea? Well, I think I'm going to buy a $100,000 laser and a $150,000 CAD cam and a $100,000 CBCT. I mean, it's with
the expectation that it's going to do them any good.
Speaking of numbers on your kids, financial planning, okay? Millennials don't know what a Roth IRA is, but they asked Albert Einstein something, I'm paraphrasing him, what was the greatest mathematical equation of all time, and what did he say?
He said compounded
interest.
Compounded interest.
Warren Buffett. I actually went to Creighton in Omaha. That's where Warren was. It's so embarrassing how dumb I was. I listened to Warren Buffett to go speak.
Wow.
Business class in 1980. Only did it for 10 extra credit points, and then I had to write an essay to get my 10 credit. What I thought of his speech, and I thought he was dumber than a rock. We said because back then it was the Nifty 50. It was Xerox and Kodak and all these high-tech companies, and he's up there saying, well, I don't understand those. And he went on to never even invest in Microsoft when Bill Gates was his best friend. He said, I only invest in a business that you can explain to me on a 5x7 index card with the number 2 pencil. And so I said, this guy's an idiot. Now looking back, I should have dropped out of college and taken my tuition money and bought one share of Berkshire Hathaway and then went and worked at Taco Bell for 20 years, and I'd have 10 times the money. But so these kids don't understand compound interest. They certainly don't know what a Roth IRA is. But the way I look at them, if they just traded in their morning Starbucks 7 days a week, 364 days a year, they could buy it. They could damn near buy a Roth IRA. Explain compounded interest and specifically what a Roth IRA is.
Okay, and you bring up a great question because you asked me earlier.
And it was named after David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
That's a little known trivia.
Yeah.
The singer.
No, I don't think so. I think it was a congressman or a senator by the last name.
No, I'm
Roth.
sure it was David Lee
Anyways,
Roth.
but we'll check that
remember
one.
his band?
We'll check that. I do not remember.
Ryan, what band was David Lee Roth in? Van Halen.
Oh, Van Halen.
Van Halen, man.
Yeah.
He was, gosh darn, David Lee Roth was the best lead singer of Van Halen, which is why they named the Roth IRA after David Lee Roth.
We'll let Howard go with that one.
Well, you'll give me that
your
one.
house. We'll let you go.
You'll let me go with that.
Howard.
But you think that might not be right.
I don't think that's right.
We might need a Wikipedia citation.
We can
on that.
look it up. Pretty sure it was either a senator or a congressman with the last name of Roth. Anyhow, what is a Roth? A Roth IRA is an IRA that allows you to put money into it that could grow tax-free when used correctly. And actually, in my opinion, one of the first things any new dentist should do is open up a Roth IRA for a couple of reasons. Number one,
Okay,
hopefully,
I'm going to back you up, though.
Okay.
I'm going to back you. They might not even know what an IRA is.
all right, great. You're exactly right. An IRA
They're
is an
25.
individual retirement account. IRA, individual retirement account. So a Roth individual retirement account. It's an account that you set up. You can set it up anywhere. You can set it up at a bank. You can set it up with an investment firm. But essentially, the Roth IRA, all that is a wrapper that tells the IRS, hey, I'm putting this money in. Howard's putting this money into this account, and he's not going to get a tax deduction for this account. But if he leaves this money in the account long enough, generally 59 and a half years old, we're going to let that money grow tax-free. And when he takes the money out at 59 and a half, that money will come out tax-free. So you never pay taxes on the growth as long as you follow the rules of the Internal Revenue Code. Now, one thing that's different about a Roth IRA than a traditional IRA, and just real quickly, a traditional IRA says...
Don't be quick.
You put the money in a traditional IRA, you get a tax deduction for that. So you're not going to pay taxes on that. So for instance, if you put $1,000 in there and your tax bracket, say, is 25%, you're going to save $250 on your taxes. You'll get that money back when you file your tax return. So, but the Roth IRA, you don't get that tax deduction. So you put $1,000 in, it's going to cost you $1,000. There's no immediate tax benefit. One of the benefits of a Roth IRA that you don't get with a traditional IRA, or really any other type of what's called a qualified retirement plan, is that when you put that money in there, you're actually able to take out your contributions at any time without a penalty. Generally speaking, if you put money in a 401k or a 403b or a traditional IRA account, if you take that money out before you're 59 and a half, not only do you pay taxes on the money that you take out, but you, in addition to that, you pay a 10% penalty if you take money out of the plan early. For simple IRA accounts, which a lot of small offices have, there can be as much as a 25% penalty for pulling that money out early. So let's go back to the Roth IRA. What's one of the challenges that young dentists have? Number one, they don't have any savings. They got debt. They don't have emergency reserves. They don't have a retirement plan. And in addition to that, well, let me rephrase. When you put money into this Roth IRA, there's going to come a time when you are not eligible to fund a Roth IRA because you make too much money. There are limits of the amount of money that you can earn, and I'm not going to go through what all those limits are, the details. You can Google it and find out what they are. Depends upon whether you're married, whether you're single, but there are limits on the amount of income that you can earn and still be eligible to fund a Roth IRA. Well, what do young dental professionals generally not have? And that's a lot of income. So you put money into a Roth or IRA early. If you don't have any emergency reserves, any types of savings, you can go to a bank, open up a Roth IRA account, and put $2,000 in there, $1,000 in there. The actual maximum contribution on an annual basis is $6,000, unless you're pretty sure that number's right. Unless you're over 50.
$6,000 a year.
Yeah, so you can put money into a Roth IRA. If you don't have any emergency reserves, my recommendation is to just put it in a regular savings account with the title Roth IRA account, Roth IRA on it. Allow that money to sit there, continue to fund, continue to start saving in maybe another emergency reserve account. And then if you never have to use that as an emergency reserve, then you can start investing that money to grow however you want to invest it, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever. But then you can use that money later for retirement. So early on, it can act as an emergency reserve, because if you do need to get to the money, you can pull your contributions out tax-free. So if you put $5,000 into a Roth IRA, and let's say 8 years from now, the value of that account is $8,000, you can pull that $5,000 out without any penalty. That's the only type of retirement plan that's out there that allows you to do that. I would, again, just check to make sure of the appropriate amounts that are actually eligible. I'm pretty sure it's $6,000, but in 2017.
So if my homies go to your website, Mathis Wealth, M-A-T, so just remember, Math is Wealth. That's a damn pretty cool name, Math is Wealth. You know what I mean?
Howard, you have just created a wow experience that I have never even thought of. I may change my entire marketing plan for my financial plan. You created a wow experience. That's awesome. Math is Wealth. I love it.
Math is Wealth. And then you should have that quote from Einstein that compounding interest is the greatest mathematical formula of all time.
Howard, somebody once told me that if you get one idea in a meeting or a seminar, whatever it cost, it's worth it. And this meeting, even if I had to drive here from Dallas, would have been worth it just for that one thing. Mathis Wealth. I
so
love
you're
it.
in Glendale, right?
I live up towards Glendale. My office is in Phoenix on 16th
But
Street.
do you live in Phoenix or do you live in
I
Glendale?
live in Phoenix, right on the border.
And you practice in Phoenix?
I practice in Phoenix.
So math is wealth. It really is. And compounded interest is everything. And so many people who don't get that. I mean, you see dentists where they're 65 and they're still paying interest on other people's money. Like they'll be 60 years old and they'll upgrade their house and they'll get like a 30-year mortgage. I'm like, Doc, are you gonna live till
to be 90? Yeah.
I mean, so how do you get them from paying interest on other people's money to earning interest on their own money? And what are they going to find at mathiswealth.com?
Well, I'm going to give you a real simple story, real life story about my sister Jerry. Not a dentist, not what I would consider, a high end earner. She made a very good living. So when my sister was 22 years old, she got a job basically serving food in the cafeteria at a hospital. She was making $1.70 an hour. My mother taught all of us, by the way, just because Mom taught everybody what to do, that doesn't mean everybody learned what to do. My sister lived her life, the gospel according to Mom. Mom said save 10% of your income. So making $1.70 an hour, my sister started saving 10% of her income. That's 17 cents an hour. She did that for many, many years. So back in 2006, right around when I published Bridging the Financial Gap, I went to visit my sister in Iowa in February. By the way, I don't recommend February in Iowa. They just don't go together. Very, very cold. I was trying to figure out why it just said 3 on her thermostat or thermometer outside. In any regard, I get to my sister's house. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's freezing cold outside. I'm standing at the door, knocking on the door. My sister comes to the door, holding a piece of paper at the screen door, yelling, "I'm a half a millionaire! I'm a half a millionaire!" And I'm looking to see what she's got. She's got her 401k statement. It says $502,000. By the way, she was 49 years old at the time. And I'm like, you're half a millionaire, sis. Open the door. It's freezing out here. I go inside, and she had basically saved 10% of her income inside her qualified retirement plan, her 401k. She did it automatically. It came right out of her check. She treated it like a bill. She's not allowed to touch that money. Mom basically said, this is not your money. This is Jerry's money when she's 60, not Jerry's money when she's 22. So at 49 or 50 years old, she meets me at the door. She's got her 401k plan. $502,000. She is excited. I'm excited for her. And what happens in 2008? The stock market tanks. What do you think happened to her 401k plan? It went down. But do you know what happened just about 2 years ago, Howard, when my sister turned 59? She had over $1 million in her 401k plan. How did that happen? It happened from compounding interest. It took her 30 years to accumulate $500,000 and another 10 years beyond that. Actually, not even really that. It took her about 25 years to accumulate $500,000. And then 10 years later, that $500,000 went from $500,000 to $1 million. That's compounding interest. What a lot of people don't realize is the compounding happens later. When you have $500,000, when you've got $5,000 and you make, let's just say you make 10%. That's what 10% of 5,000 is $500. Doesn't really seem that big of a deal. But when you make 10% on $500,000, that's $50,000. Now, my sister wasn't a dentist, by the way, by the time she retired. This is a great story. She retired. She walked into work one day. She was now the director of food services at a very large hospital in Nebraska. And the president of the hospital called in all the middle managers and said to them, "Well, I know you've been laying people off, and now it's my turn. So I'm going to have to let some of you go. So what I'm looking for are somebody a couple of people, 2-3 people that would be willing to volunteer to take early retirement." And my sister's hand went right up in the air. "I'll go." Did no question, no thought about it in any way, shape, or form. She was ready to go. And what was kind of funny is that her boss then kind of went to her and afterwards and said, "Well, you weren't really one that I wanted to leave," but she did. And she retired. Interestingly enough, what she had now, Howard, she had choices. She could decide what she wanted to do. And about 3 months later, do you know what they did? They came, called her up. "Hey, could you come back?" And you know what she said? "Sure, but it's going to cost you twice what you were paying me before, and I'm only going to work a limited number of hours." Now she had options in her life. She still has options in her life. And she did that for a little while, and then she really realized she really didn't want the money. She didn't need the money. She wanted to go spend time with her grandkids in North Carolina. That is what making decisions at 22 years old and living those decisions for a period of 30 years allowed her at 60 years old to retire. And you know as well as I do, Howard, the vast majority of dental professionals at 60 years old in this country who made a lot more money than my sister ever did, maybe 2 or 3 times the amount of money on an annual basis that my sister, they don't have $1 million and they can't afford to retire. That's 60 years old. It's, like you said, math is wealth. It's mathematics. Put the money in, let it grow. The markets are going to fluctuate. That's just how things are. And you've just got to have a plan, live the plan, just like a dentist puts together a treatment plan. You got to put together a treatment plan for yourself at 60 years old. That involves giving up some things today so that you can have things tomorrow.
I remember my first, this lady came to my patient, this was like 30 years ago, and she got a job at Mobile Oil in the mailroom when she was 16 in high school in Parsons, Kansas. And they had this little check. You check this and we'll remove 3% of your deal. And she checked it. And she never looked at it again. And so 16 to 65, she moved out to Phoenix, Arizona. She had $3 million in cash. $3 million in cash from that check in that 3% box at Mobile Oil. And she wanted braces. She was all excited. She finally retired, came here and won braces. And she was 65 and I was young. So I got a board certified orthodontist, Harry Green, to come down once a month and we'd all go to lunch and teach me this ortho case. And it was just amazing to where she was just and then there was that other book. Remember The Millionaire Next Door?
The Millionaire Next Door.
Written by
Absolutely.
2 PhDs. And what was the most mind-blowing in that book, do you know what occupation had the most millionaires?
I do not.
It was teachers.
Oh, teachers.
Because doctors, physicians, lawyers, and dentists have this inflated ego. And so they have these big houses, big fancy cars, and big vacations. But school teachers, you're a sum of your 5 best friends. So if your 5 best friends are school teachers, you live in a modest house, and on vacation you go camping or to the lake or whatever. But they save their percent. And so at 65, school teachers were the #1 highest percent occupation of millionaires. And you would think it'd be cardiovascular surgeons and dentists and orthodontists and all stuff like that, but they live in $1 million houses. Their vacation is, cruises and Hawaii, and they're just always spending money. So specifically back to these kids at 25, if they go to mathiswealth.com, what are they going to check out? What percent are they? What are they supposed to do? So at 65, they got $1 million dineros in the bank.
Well, they need to.
And the dinero, by the way, was named after Robert De Niro. It was not a currency in Italy. That's all. It was. But anyway, so if they go to mathiswealth.com, what are they supposed to do? I mean, are they supposed to just tell them what they're supposed to do?
You know what they need to do? They just need to either send me an email at larry@mathiswealth.com or call us, and we'll send them the information that they need to get started. And number one is finding out where you stand financially, and get started open up an IRA account, a Roth IRA, or maybe
do
they have
open that up with you, or do
absolutely they can open it up with us.
Okay, so your email is contactus@mathiswealth. So you can remember that, contactus@mathiswealth. And you're in Phoenix, Arizona, up the street. What if they're in Charlotte? What states can you work with?
We're licensed in about 20, 25 states, but it's not that big of a deal. If somebody is in a state that we're not licensed, we simply get licensed. And in addition to that, a lot of times if they want a local advisor, I know advisors all over the country, I can direct them to somebody local if that would be
So
helpful.
if they email you, contact us at mathiswealth.com. And I know they're always, I think who's that lady on TV that talks about finance?
Susie Orman.
Susie Orman. And Susie Orman is...
She was a rower. She was an oarman. Never mind.
Orman?
I'm just trying to pull off a Howard. It's
I
not
like
really
that.
working.
I like that. But I love watching shows like hers. I love Shark Tank. I love those things. But you can really tell by watching just 4 or 5 episodes of her show that finance is a very emotional subject.
Oh yeah, very emotional.
It just why is math, which should be completely emotional, why is this also emotional with humans? Why do they have such a emotional time with this?
Howard, I can't say that I have an answer to that, but I will tell you a way to help your emotions work for you in a positive way financially. And this is something that I really strive to help people to understand. You have to know what is really important to you in life in order to make sound financial decisions. And I will tell you that the vast majority of people don't have a clue. They don't really know what they really value in life. People value, ethics, they value integrity, they value hard work. But when it really comes down to it, the vast majority of people have never really sat down and said, what are the things that I value most in life? What are the things that I value most in life personally? Me, Larry Mathis. I value time with my kids. I know that today is the only day I have promise. I value spending time with my kids. I value spending time with my wife. I value spending time with my friends. I value making a positive impact in the lives of other people. My wife likes security. She likes peace of mind. She likes knowing that the bills are paid and that when we go on vacation, we don't have to worry, should we be spending this money on vacation? The vast majority of people have never taken the time to do that. And that's where, unfortunately, most people just make decisions on the spur of the moment. They've never sat down and said, what's really important to me? And we can go back to 2008 when I talked about when my sister's 401k plan went down. Of course, it came back as the market recovered. But we had a slew of dental offices, I know here, dentists that went out of business in 2008.
How many do you think went under in Phoenix? I mean, I hear different numbers. I've heard 74 and I've heard 86.
Yeah, I want to say somewhere between 50 and 100. I don't know exactly what the number was. But what I did realize is a lot of people realized that big house really wasn't that important to them.
Oh my God.
That Mercedes really wasn't that important.
God.
What was important was knowing that they didn't have to worry about money. And I will tell you that I cannot really think of any of our clients that really suffered financially during that period of time. Sure, their practices suffered, but they kept their lifestyle in order. They kept their lifestyle in line with their finances, kept investing, and kept their. They know what's important. They knew what was important.
But you know what? I had several sitting on that couch right there, crying, bawling, losing everything. And I mean, it was just amazing. Like I'd say, well, you drive a Mercedes-Benz and your wife drives a Range Rover and you got that sports car. Number one, let's just sell those. They were all leased. They
Absolutely.
Couldn't get out of their lease. And then you looked at their home and it's like you start looking at their lifestyle and it's like, do they think they're Rod Stewart? I mean, you go to their house, it's like, dude, you're a dentist, and this is all borrowed money. It's all leverage, and I think that the millennials is having a tough time because when you said what's most important to you, first thing you said was spend time with your kids.
Absolutely.
And you got 3 boys, and I got 4 boys, and I'm with you. I want to spend time with 3 of my 4 boys too. I just don't want to tell you which one is that 4th boy. You don't even hear me. And and I think the millennials are very smart because a lot of them, and I'm not just talking about the United States. It's you've had falling birth rates around the world. So at the end of World War II, the average American's having 5.5 kids. Now it's down to 2.3. Japan's under 1. And when I was lecturing in Japan, those women dentists told me, they go, a lot of Japanese women don't want to have a kid because they saw what it was like having a kid. You know, your school is very intense, and you're trying to get in the best high school, and that was very intense. Trying to get in the best college, and that was very intense. Trying to get a job at the big Toyota. Then they work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then drop dead of a heart attack at 65. And a lot of women just said, I don't want to do that. Our generation, like these millennials, get out of school with $250,000 debt, and you look at their schedule. They work Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5. The only 9 to 5 I know is 95 hours a week for 3 decades. And I mean, so if they don't want to work like their old man, and they want to spend more time with their children and their dogs or cats or whatever, they only work 4 days a week. Well, they can't spend like they work 95 hours a week. So they're spenders, and they're really cerebral and don't want to. And what's important to them, I agree. My 4 boys are the most important thing to me, and I love spending time with them. But a lot of the time that we spend together, we're working. Or like when I take a vacation, and I take my boys, but like when we go to London, I'll lecture in London. When we go to Tokyo, I'll also, so it's a work mix. You know, it's always, so what do you say to millennials who say, what's important to me is not working, 95 hours a week like my old man. I just want to work 9 to 5. But she wants to spend more than her old man. She's got a bigger house than her old man. She's got a newer car than her old man. And her old man has 10 times more savings.
It's math.
How do you fight that? It's not math. It's math is wealth.
Math is wealth.com, exactly. But it's a mathematical calculation. It is a matter of saying, hey, and what's going to happen is they're just going to accumulate more debt. And if they continue to spend money that they do not have to impress people that they don't even like,
that was a great quote. People.
That's credit. It's a way of spending money that you don't have to impress people that you don't even like. That's not really, but anyways. Yeah. But it's, you have to, again, it comes down to what's important to you. For me personally, my wife and I have lived in the same house for 30 years. We live in the same house today that we did before we even had children. It was in 2012 when we finally bought our second home up in the mountains. Took us a long time to be able to save for that and know that, hey, we can afford to do this. And so it's putting off today for what you want tomorrow. The challenge is that a lot of people don't really think tomorrow is going to come. And they think of tomorrow as literally tomorrow. Today is Tuesday, June 27th. And when I'm talking about tomorrow, June 27th of 2017, I'm talking about tomorrow, June 27th of 2052. That will come very quickly. And it's just a matter of trying to get a little perspective on how fast time goes, and you've got a plan for it.
I found your quote. We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Yeah, and that's the other thing about, again, with that school teachers, when you're running with dentists, they're all talking about their, I bought this big laser, I bought this big machine, I bought this bass boat, I bought this cabin. Maybe if your husband is a school teacher, maybe you should only hang around with his friends. They're like, on vacation, we camped out at the lake. You hang out with Dennis. Oh, we went to my cabin. I'll never forget. I was lecturing in Lafayette, Louisiana. The average, you can't make this shit up. The average dentist in the seminar owned like a $90,000 bass boat that they would take down to the bayou.
Oh, it's Louisiana.
Halfway into the Gulf of Mexico. It was crazy fun. All your homies have a $90,000 bass boat.
You're going to have one too.
That's very different than if you're hanging out with school teachers where they would go and rent a bass boat for the weekend. I always said you never want to buy a boat. You always just want to have one friend with a boat.
BOAT stands for Bring On Another 1,000, by the way. This coming from a previous boat owner. I remember 2 times, one, like I mentioned, we've lived in the same house for 30 years. And I have some clients who have some significant net worth. My wife and I have spent time in their homes and such, and I'll never forget, one of them was coming to our house, and they were going to spend the night with us. They were traveling through Phoenix, and they're going to spend the night. We have a very, very modest home. 2,250 square feet in a very middle-class neighborhood, nothing fancy. And my wife said, you feel a little maybe embarrassed to have somebody come stay here? And I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Just because I don't have and what they have does not mean I'm not good with my money. I just prefer to do something differently with my money. And candidly, Howard, I have clients who make a lot more money than I do. And they do very well, and if they can afford it, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with having stuff. Stuff isn't bad in and of itself if you can afford it. I remember another time, I have a lady client, very well-to-do here in Phoenix, started a business, her and her family started a company here in Phoenix. If I mentioned it, you'd know what it was. But I'll never forget, she came to my firm and was asking me if I would be willing to manage their family's money, and I said I'd be happy to do that. And she looked at me and she said, tell me about your home. And I said, what's that? And she says, tell me about your house. Describe your home to me. And I described it, and she said, I like that. I said, why did you ask me that? She goes, I just want to know what I'm paying for. And I thought, what an interesting question. By the way, she lives in a very modest home herself, nothing grandeur, but that's a great question. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting.
What percent of your clients are dentists?
Probably about 20%.
20%, and what's the other 80%?
I have clients who are corporate executives. I have clients who are physicians. I've got attorney clients. I have a lot of clients who are just simply retired clients from corporations.
Did you see any differences between physicians, dentists, and lawyers? They're very similar types of people.
You know, the reality is, Howard, people are people. Whether you're a dentist or a physician or an attorney, there are some differences. Engineers. Engineers understand math, and so they're a little bit different. But you know, across the board, most people are pretty.
You know,
that's the most
interesting difference between China and Singapore, which I think are the two best managed countries on earth, versus undisciplined democracy. In China, everyone in government's an engineer. In America, everything's a lawyer. And we have 1 million lawyers. That's why the United States hasn't built a nuclear power plant in 30 years, but just American General Electric has built 30 in China. Singapore is the most efficiently managed country I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it runs like a Swiss clock, and every employee is an engineer. I like engineers because dentists, physicians, lawyers are very emotional, like right, wrong, this is right. Engineers are like, well, this is a trade-off. You know, if you want fuel efficiency, make the car light. If just everything in it. I love engineers' minds the most because they're just so analytical. You got 2 amazing books. Let's talk about both of them. And if you go to Amazon.com, you got Bridging the Financial Gap for Dentists, all 5-star reviews. Is that a must-read for these kids coming out of school?
I think it is definitely a must-read. It is. It's a book that really teaches the fundamentals of finance. I will be honest; it was written in 2006, and some of the stuff that's in there is a little outdated as far as tax rules and stuff like that. It needs to be updated. But the principles are the principles. Absolutely, it's a must-read.
Can I give you a marketing tip on that?
Hey, you've already given me a great one for my practice.
Well, we sat in chairs and read books because we were just boring. We were just that pathetically boring, or must have no other stimulus in life. I mean, I've read 1,000 books. Millennials, they do audiobooks. So when I came out with my book, Uncomplicated Business, they kept saying, you got to do an audiobook. So finally, Ryan forced me to sit down. And I just sat down and I read my books, 5.5 hours. Oh, my God. The sales of an audiobook just fly off the chart. You have to sit down and you have to give them an audiobook because when Miss 25-year-old dentist wants to read your book, she wants to be on the Stairmaster, the treadmill, cleaning her house. These podcasts, I mean, I have so many people who say, Saturday morning, it takes me 4 hours to do my house. I got to do all the laundry, cleaning, vacuuming, wash the car, and I'll burn through 4 podcasts. And that's when I did your audiobook. It was 5.5 hours. I had one lady send me a deal. She says she was an Ironman, and she says 5.5 hours is about her 90-mile train ride. And whenever she's doing a 90 to 112-mile bike ride. She always gets a 6-hour audiobook. So if you want to, if there's some minor change, whatever, what you need,
I can just update that.
Just update it off the top of your head while you're reading your book. You know what I mean? Just read it. It's an audiobook. So then the other book we started talking about at the beginning, Mom Was Right. MomWasRightBook.com, but is it on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. MomWasRightBook.com is the website for the book, and you can actually purchase it through there, but you can go to Amazon and just simply type in Mom Was Right.
Okay, I'm gonna fact check you. I'm gonna go to Google right now.
Go right ahead. It better be there.
So which book do you recommend more? She was gonna start with one.
Well, if they buy one, I make X, but if they buy two, I make 2 times X, Howard.
So you say buy them both?
You know, it really depends.
And again, all 5-star, both of your books only have 5-star reviews. So that must be your 7 siblings and your 2 kids.
Actually, I wrote another book as well, and I sold 5 copies of that, and I'm pretty sure it was my 5 sisters because my brother won't read one of my books.
Yeah, that's what
you know what? I would tell them probably to go ahead and get Bridging the Financial Gap. And it's got a little bit more. Let me tell you why. Mom Was Right was written a little bit differently than Bridging the Financial Gap. Bridging the Financial Gap has some why behind the finances, why you should be doing certain things, but it also has some of the how-to. Mom Was Right. It's tough for me to say this because Mom Was Right is not a how-to book. Mom Was Right was really written for the purpose of getting people to understand why they should be making certain financial decisions, and not just why they should be making them, but helping them to discover what their why is, what is really important. If you remember what I said earlier, is the vast majority of people have no clue as to why they make the financial decisions they make. They just make decisions, they go to Costco and they have a Costco moment. Oh my gosh, I hope I don't get my wife mad at me this morning, but somebody sent me a Yeti cup, a Yeti, little tumbler. They told me to keep my beer cold for 24 hours. I said, I doubt it's going to last that long in that cup. But she said, we ought to buy a Yeti cooler. And I said, why? Why do we need a Yeti? We have a fifth wheel. We use a refrigerator. We really don't need a Yeti. Well, why are we making financial decisions that we're making? Mom Was Right. See that book? Mom Was Right. Is more of a book about why. And you know what, actually, there's a quote in here, if you don't mind me taking the time to read it, that says, Janine Mathis will erase any excuse you might think you have as a single mom to remain stagnant financially. It's time to take control of your life, your kids, and your money. No more excuses. My mom was 35 years old when my dad died. Like I said, no house, no income, she had never worked a full-time job outside of the home. She was raising 7 kids. It was the 60s, and it was different in the 60s for women. She had no credit. All of the credit was in the husband's name back then. She never made more than $22,000 a year in earnings working. It was the most money she ever made, and it was the year that she retired in 1992. She retired debt-free. Her home was paid for. She had no credit. She had great credit actually at the time, but she didn't owe anybody anything. She paid for my college education. She paid for my oldest sister's college education. Sent me and my sister to Europe, all expenses paid when we graduated from high school, for a month. And never made more than $22,000 a year. And she retired debt-free at 62. Mom Was Right talks about how she did that because she knew what her why was. Bridging the Financial Gap gives more information on the how-tos. How to set up a Roth IRA. What to look for in a disability insurance policy. What type of retirement plan should you have? So the books are slightly different. And I'll make an offer to your podcast. And I guess the easiest way to do this, if we'll say I'll give 10 copies away, 5 of the Bridging Financial Gap, 5 of the Mom Was Right. They send me an email, larry@mathiswealth.com. Send me a copy of, and the first 10 people will get a copy of one of those books.
And what
I'll just mail it to them.
Larry@mathiswealth. mathiswealth.com. You know, they have to see the word to remember it.
Yes, I love that.
They don't remember
I got
Mathis because they don't
yeah.
see it. They can see math is wealth.
Math is
Memory
wealth.
is very visual. For humans, birds, they all remember sounds. Monkeys, apes remember like visual. Like you'll say, "Hi, I'm Larry Mathis," and then they'll go to a party for 2 hours. And as they're leaving, they said they remember it's you. But they say, "I forgot. I'm sorry. What is your name?" So then you have them a business card because a monkey's opposing thumb can hang on to the card, but their ear can't hang on to the sound unless they see it. But I want you to do me a favor.
Absolutely.
I want you to. I mean, this is Saturday, this is Sunday, and you're just going to sit there and you're going to read this.
I can't wait to do that. That's going to be so much fun.
Read the damn book, and also I always think the research from Jeff Bezos is clear. Audiobooks outsell physical books.
Absolutely.
Number 2, the author should always read it. Because then you can be special in the book. Instead of just reading the book, you can ad lib, you can get off topic, and then the next page brings you back and forth. So it's a better experience. So reading the book by the author who says, you know what, I also, I want to add something that's not in the book, and you can go off on tangents and
I love it. You know, Howard, you are not just another pretty face.
They don't want to hear her saying, "Larry, you left your clothes on the floor, the bathroom lid's up. God dang it, Larry!" And right? No.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I retweeted your Bridging the Financial Gap from Amazon to our 20,000 homies, and I retweeted The Mom Was Right, Larry Mathis. So if you get to work, just go to @HowardFran, and you can find both of those books. Oh, my God, we went over our hour brand.
Wow.
So my final question, one overtime question. We're over our time, but I want you to wrap up everything you said in the graduation class of 2017. If you were given the commencement speak, they always want it to be 2 or 3 minutes. What is your final piece of advice to the commencement graduating class of 2017 who just joined our sacred sovereign profession of dentistry? What would you tell them? Especially if your 3 boys, say they just graduated from dental school 2 weeks ago. What would you tell them?
Well, I would tell them, if you're just graduating from dental school, to, number one, know why you did this. Some people went into dentistry and they don't even know why they went into dentistry. Figure out why you're there. Realize that the more people you help, the better off that you're going to be. Go into dentistry with the mindset of helping others and not just about, you want to make a great living. I personally believe that the more people that you personally help, the better off you're going to be. Always have your patient's best interest in mind, 100% of the time. Keep track of your finances, because the reality is, if you are better off financially, that's going to make you a better dentist. If you don't have to worry about money, you're going to be a better dentist. You're going to be a better provider of health care to your patients. So that means know what your numbers are in dentistry, but also know what your numbers are at home. Know how much money am I making? What are my expenses? Plan today for tomorrow. Don't live today like, I would say don't live today like tomorrow's never going to come. You do have to have a balance, though. You need to have some time to take some time for yourself and enjoy life along the way. But plan for tomorrow, today, by being willing just to give up a little bit. And take the time to spend time with other people who make you better. I'm going to be really blunt. I should have been here a long time ago, Howard, because just this time here makes me better at what I do. So spend time with those types of people who make you better. Find a mentor in the dental business. Don't consider everybody to be your competitor. This is something that I do as a financial advisor. I have a study group. These are seven of us from all different parts of the country. We get together twice a year and talk about our practices, the best things that we're doing, the challenges that we're having, and we kind of mentor each other along. The dentist down the street doesn't have to be your competitor. They can be your friend, and you can learn from one another. There's plenty of people to go around, and you don't have to have the next patient. And like I said, spend time with people who make you better.
It's funny. Tonight, I'm going to dinner at 6:00 with 3 dentists in this zip code. I mean, that's you thinking abundance and fun. My favorite dentists on earth are the ones that live and practice within 1 block to 3 miles of my office. And half the dentists think in fear and scarcity, but half think in hope, growth, and abundance. I mean, if you're going to imagine being a fireman your whole life and you're the only guy in the fire station, that wouldn't be very fun.
Would not be very fun at all.
One of the most fun things any fireman will tell you is working his 24-hour shift with his homies. He's been putting out fires. And by the way, I signed my fireman patient just the other day. They're down to not even 10% of the calls are fire related. It's 90% healthcare related. But and one last thing I just want to say is try to think of yourself at the most vulnerable time of your life. When were you the most vulnerable? Try to create a dental office for that person. Create a dental office that you'd want to be a patient. Create a dental office that you'd want your kid to be a patient. Create a dental office that if you died, it'd keep going that way and you're dead and your great-grandchildren go there. Just try to, treat other people like you want to be treated. And then lastly, I just want to say, especially on your topic, I just think a minimalistic lifestyle is so much less stress. I mean, like you'll go buy, you'll love San Diego, so you go buy a house down there. Really? You want to maintain a house year around San Diego? Why don't you just go stay in a resort on the beach in San Diego? You want to take a boat out on the ocean? You can just go rent a boat on the ocean. I think that when these people spend a lot of money on all this stuff, it actually makes their life more stressful. And I think the more minimal your lifestyle is, the less stress you have. And some of the remember back in the day, the richest guy in our backyard was Keating, and he had jets,
Charles
he had
Keating.
private islands,
he had everything,
yachts, he had everything. And then when the market slightly dipped, what happened to him?
Boom.
I mean, and everybody even knew he must have been hiding millions everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And how much money did he have hidden anywhere?
Well, I will tell you what's kind of interesting. I was at the Biltmore the day before he was let off arrested in Los Angeles.
And Trump's daughter made a comment about this, not to talk about religion, sex, politics, but one time they were walking by a homeless person, and Donald turned to his daughter and said, "That guy's richer than me." And what he meant by that is he was carrying, $1 billion in debt, and then a homeless guy didn't have any debt.
Anything.
And Trump did teach me one killer piece of advice. I remember when I was in, I think it was when I was buying my first house. It's about 87 or whatever, but it was at The Art of the Deal. Yeah. The one thing I'll never forget about The Art of the Deal is that price doesn't matter to terms. He says, "I'll buy your house for $1 billion if I can finance it $1 a month for 1 billion months. Because I can rent it out for $1,000 a month and make $999 positive cash flow." And it was so funny because so many people were trying to get the right price on the home, and then they got taken to the cleaners on the finance. And it's like if they could have bought a significantly bigger home if they'd have worked on the financing instead of a 30-year mortgage at this percent, maybe a 15-year mortgage. That's another no-brainer thing. These kids are 25. They'll buy a house on a 30-year term. And when I got my MBA at ASU, they formally taught us that any loan over 24 years is technically interest only. And that if you have a 30-year mortgage and make 13 monthly payments a year instead of 12, it's now a 15-year loan.
Yeah, 15 to 18
so
months.
So you're 25. Why can't you buy your house on a 15-year loan? And then we all had part-time jobs and second jobs and tertiary jobs, and they worked Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5. What if they just did one Saturday a month from 8 to 5, and that was the money to make one extra house payment a year, so that at 25, instead of paying off that house at 55, they'd be 25 and paid off at 40.
At 40.
I mean, it's just, just know your numbers. Get financially smart. Larry, it was a huge honor that you came by the house today to talk to my homies.
It was a lot of fun.
And I hope everybody goes to your website. And I hope before we know it, we have 2 new audiobooks on Amazon.
I'm gonna get that done. If I can take 1 second and just let them know about one more thing. We have a seminar. Maybe I shouldn't talk about it.
Because it's in Maui.
It's in Maui. Maui Dental Seminar. It's with some of the greatest minds in dentistry. It's been running for about 40 years. And I took it over with a dentist out in Arkansas, Dr. Don Warren. And it's next January, MauiDentalSeminar.com.
Who's the guy? Don Warren?
Don Warren.
He's your partner on this meeting?
He is.
Well, then I want to podcast him.
We'll get him out here.
Well, no, you don't have to do it here.
No, you can do
Skype.
it from Arkansas.
So that meeting was actually started by a sacred couple in dentistry.
Jim and Naomi Rohde.
Jim Rohde and Naomi Rohde. And Naomi Rohde is a hygienist whose brother was the famous Omar Reed.
Omar Reed.
So Jim and Naomi started this meeting 40 years ago in Maui.
In Maui.
And her brother Omar had a meeting in Maui. What was it called?
That one I don't know.
What was that one called? It was, I think it started with an O or something. But anyway, so talk about the origins of this meeting 40 years ago with Jim and Naomi Rohde, who are the founders of Smart Practice.
Yeah,
it used to be called Semantodontics.
Used to be called
Then it was Smart
Semantodontics.
Practice.
And now it's Smart Practice. But their relationship in the seminar, Jim and Naomi Rohde were some of the forerunners of the seminar business and helping people to run dental practices as a business and understand it as a business. Jim is an amazingly smart, intelligent guy as far as helping people in running a successful dental practice. Naomi, incidentally, was one of the greatest speakers, not just in Arizona in dentistry, but literally in the world.
She was president of the NSA.
She is president of the National Speakers Association. President.
No, it was the National Security Agency.
I'm pretty sure it's the
She's a
National
spy.
Speakers Association.
Is she a spy or a speaker? They both
She's a speaker.
Start with SP.
Probably one of the, and she's actually my one of my mentors and my speaking coach.
So
we took it over 2 years ago.
Smart Practice, what was it called back then?
Semantodontics. Yeah, Semantodontics.
Okay, so continue.
Great company.
Because I want to tell you the most genius thing that Jim and Naomi Rohde did that no one would ever know. Semantodontics got into the management information software system back when Dentrix, EagleSoft, Kodak had Smart Practice. So they had Compudontics with this guy named Tom. And you know what was different about Compudontics that no one's ever done? They did their own accounting in their own software. Where everybody else was selling like $5,000 for the software, they just had a subscription fee, like $100 a month. But the accounting was in there. And when I would go over there, the time I went over there a couple times, you had like 1,000 dentists. Every single one of them knew their numbers. Every single one of them knew their costs. And I mean, and now we are 30 years later, and all those companies have been gone, merged, acquired, and everything, and now no one knows their costs. But Jim and Naomi and Tom, do you remember Tom?
I don't remember Tom, no.
When he sold Compudontics, I think he tied up in Prescott or Tom Warner or Warner.
Yeah, I don't know him.
But, they were always ahead of their time. So when is that meeting?
That meeting is in January 2018. I believe the dates are
Where can they find them on their website?
MauiDentalSeminar.com.
So Maui.
You can also like us on Facebook, MauiDentalSeminar.com. I believe the dates are the 16th, 17th, 18th at the Sheraton at Black Rock. Beautiful place.
MauiDentalSeminar.com. There it is.
There it is. You pull up the agenda.
MauiDentalSeminar.com.
Okay, so the agenda is the MauiDentalSeminar.com. It starts on January 15th, 16th, and 17th. Of course, you want to come early and maybe stay a couple of days. But we have Jim and Naomi Rohde will be speaking, as well as Wendy Briggs. Talks about doubling your production. Oh, here we go. We've got a video here.
No, what you do is you email this YouTube to Ryan, and we'll attach that YouTube at the end of the video.
All right, perfect.
And the Facebook. So they're going to
Excellent.
see your video and all that stuff like that.
Excellent.
Thank you for all that you've done for dentistry. Thank you so much for coming to my house.
Thank you,
The
Howard.
only reason this
It was fun.
podcast is a rocky hot success because I'm able to get talented people like you to come over.
Thank you, Howard. It was a lot of fun.
Much.
Come with us sometime to Maui.
Hawaii is just phenomenal.
Everybody ought to be coming to this. We bring our staff, we bring our families, and we have a great time.
This week in Maui has been amazing.
What I enjoy most about the seminar is the ability to network with other dentists. I realize when I come back each time, I say, man, I integrated that this year, or I integrated that this year.
Our office team has just learned great things. We've been able to network with other people.
All right.
It's an excellent course. We come learn something every year, and I can promise you that everyone will take at least one good thing back to their practice the day you get back home.
Consider changes that you might have never thought of before. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'll be back next year.
It means that one's right or one's wrong. It means we have a different paradigm.
I hope that next year you'll consider being here with us. It's an amazing experience. I met people who are in the forefront of dentistry, who think about things that most are still reading about or suggesting. These people are actually doing it. Team members who want to do something dramatically different in their practices next year. So I hope you'll look at the date. I hope you'll consider joining us. Aloha.
And the other technology I've got over here is our ozone generating unit.
Love coming to Hawaii every year. I try to give things to people to make you think. We talk about nutrition, we talk about TMJ, we talk about sleep problems, we talk about ozone therapies, laser-assisted perio, all the things that really keep us on the edge in our practice. If we don't continue to change, and this is a seminar for change, then our practices will die on the vine, and we don't want that to happen. So come to Hawaii, have a great time, spend a little chill time watching the whales, and have a lot of good camaraderie.